Hey, welcome back everyone. So in this one I want to show you a little bit of the behind the scenes of this one. I know a lot of you can sort of struggle with like how do you construct an entire scene inside of Procreate. You know, there's a lot going on there. So I want to show you a few techniques that allow you to conserve on layers and maneuver to get these more detailed scenes, and I think rather easily. And I'm also going to show you a neat way to edit because of you know, utilizing groups and things like that in a certain way. So first off, what I'm going to do, this is the finished piece. It took roughly 15 hours, which is a bit much, but I'm still pretty happy with it. But if you see these four files here, I don't know if you can see the pixel, but I'll jump in and show you exactly what they are. But I started out with a 4800 by 6000 pixel document. And that's a bit much, but what it does, it affords me really nice line clarity. And I'll admit, you don't need to go this clean with your backgrounds. It's a bit too much. It can actually make them feel a bit too tense and lifeless, but I had fun with it nonetheless. So what I want to show you is that when you start to accumulate these different layers, you got to be a bit strategic about it. Now you can just start merging things down, but then you lose abilities to edit, right? So sometimes you want to keep a little bit of that. So I'm going to show you a quick part of the time lapse just so you can see sort of the process that I take. So I start off with a grid. Oh, and let me show you the, everybody's always wondering about the way I use vanishing points, which honestly, I'm going to show you this and I'm going to say, well, I probably didn't do it as good as I could have. So here's the vanishing points, right? So people always wonder, like, where do you place them? And I'll be honest, I just place them outside of the panel border, or in this case, the frame, that's the white area. And it should form a triangle, and you want to really avoid these lining up too much to where that triangle hits. So if you look at the bottom left and the top middle, right, the green and the, I guess there are two of them are green, but the one on the left and the vanishing point up top, if you notice, they're lined up so much to where they pretty much form a straight line even inside that left tip of the canvas. You really want to avoid that, and that's actually why I have some distortion in that building right there, because your triangle should actually sit outside of the frame. It's just a basic way to put it. There's a lot more that goes into perspective, but I'm just going to keep it kind of simple here because that can get into a whole nother bag of kittens there. But something like that, just so you can see visually how it's done. And then from that point on, oh, and by the way, it's a tilted horizon. So if you see that blue line, it's got a tilt. That gives you that nice angled effect. Something I feel like is a little more cinematic for a shot like this. So I'm gonna hit done there, and you see the lines there. But what I did is I basically drew out the perspective grid, and it'll be right about there. So taking the time to draw each one of those lines. They're not accurately placed or nothing like that, but what it does, it gives me that grid to now draw over top and just basically lay in some freehand line work to get an idea going or get a set of ideas going. So the thing that I find is most helpful about this part is that you're a lot more likely to be creative when you freehand. The sketch can be pretty bad, I think. I mean, I've gotten decent at seeing through it and pulling the lines that I need to. So I like the sketch to be pretty loose. Again, I probably made a mistake by cleaning up too much like this, going overly tight and using the perspective tools too often throughout the process. So keep that in mind, that you really want to mix in some freehand effects to get that nice organic mixture into the line work. Another technique that I think helped with something like this and helps with these types of backgrounds is you can see that I start, even when I'm placing the windows, I start with a container shape and then I cut into it. The reason why is there's techniques for mapping distance and perspective. I got videos on that, but it costs you time. So I'm trying to save time and develop these ideas, hopefully rather quickly. And so for me, drawing that shape first, like a big, box for that area, and then again, just segmenting into it. Obviously, once you start the first initial windows from the top, you can relay that information down with the perspective feature pretty easily. Another thing I like to do, and I've showed this on other videos, but I will draw these pink lines or whatever color as placeholders, and then I will copy elements from the initial point, in this case the interior of that window, and I'll just copy it over and retransform it into place using those pink guides to guide me. And I did the same thing with the top of the trim. So if you notice right there, there's one of them, and then boom, boom, boom. You know, I just copy, or boom, boom, and I copy it over. I did the same thing with the trim up here. You can see me doing it right there. I just find it to be a little bit of a time saver. Just remember, you have to do that first one in perspective, and then you have to transform them into place. They're not just going to fall into perspective by resizing them. At least I find they don't. The other thing is just when doing buildings, I like to just like cut in and out of the building. So concave, convex. I cut into the windows and I add trim that extrudes outward. And I just make it up as I go. Now, I'm sure I suffer some sense of like realism or you know, it probably doesn't come out as good as it could if I pulled lots of reference. But again, I'm trying to do this in a way where I like to feel like I can make it up as I go, and it saves me some time. So, but you know, don't feel like you need to do that. I've been drawing this stuff a long time. I probably should be better at this point than I am, but whatever, you know, it's like, again, I just like trying to create through it and figure stuff out. Sometimes it comes out better than others by doing that process. So same thing, just, you know, cutting in and out of all these shapes. A lot of times I'll add in, like here I added those windows in that top middle building, and then they just look too boring, so I just cut into it with some black and white and added another little area of trim, and that gave it just a little bit more dimension, a little bit more to look at. So again, just play around with those concepts, lots of different shapes, lots of different stages of trim basically, and then go back, and I like to go back and add like a little bit of grit and imperfections, because again, when you're working digitally, the stuff can look a little too clean and pristine. So there's that one. That shows you just, you know, kind of how I started. I started with the background first, mainly because I just wanted to practice the background. Spidey was actually an afterthought, but I knew I was going to throw some character in there. I just didn't know, you know, I usually gravitate towards Spider-Man. But so the thing is that, you know, what I felt like I learned on this particular one was, again, that I probably could have added more freehand techniques. It could definitely be better compositionally and things like that, but I still felt like it was productive. For this next part, I just want to show you, like, say you get into a bind, right? And you're creating this file, you're creating this artwork, you start to get a lot of layers, and you don't know which ones to delete. You're kind of worried if you delete a couple, you can't go back, right? We've all been there. So here's a great way to deal with that, or, you know, the way that I found anyways. I don't know if it's great, it works for me. But so you see I'm kind of 2 layers left and I'm stuck. And say I didn't want to delete any of these layers, which actually there's a bunch that I could delete here. The next best thing is just to swipe over and duplicate the file. Now, why does that work? Because now I've got 2 identical files. I can delete a bunch of the ones I wasn't sure if I could delete from the first one, you know, or the second, I should say. And then basically that first one still gives me any of those layers that I deleted as a backup, right? That's one way to look at it. So again, duplicate the file. Now you've got to duplicate all the layers, delete the ones that you think you can actually get rid of, condense some down. If you mess up, you can go back, right? Because you got that backup. The other thing is this. You can also start to back down the size of the document based on pixel data, which will in turn give you more layers. So for this, I took it down to, let's go back here. That's how you would resize it. Maybe I should show you that first. So just to resize it, you go crop and resize, settings. You're going to definitely want to hit resample canvas. If not, it doesn't work properly. And then you back it down pixel data wise, and it will actually tell you how many new layers you get. I'm not going to do that now. I've already done it, but I'll go to the layers now and go to canvas information, layers, and you see now I've got 29 layers. And what I was able to do was back that down a little bit and then zoom in and go, you know what, it's still super clean line art, so I'm good to go. Which also starts to tell you more and more you do it, I probably didn't need to start at that big of a file size, right? So there's that as well, going into it with, you know, armed with that knowledge and ready to, you know, conform to the 29 layers or whatever. But again, when I do this stuff, I typically get pretty layer intensive. I mean, I'll show you these again. The other thing is, once I start working on the character over a full background, it gets even more layer intensive, right? Because now the line art is separated. Everything that's itemized in that character is probably roughly the same, but I don't know. It just seems to be more layers, but it affords you more opportunity to edit the work and do some pretty neat things. So I'm going to show you that now. So one of which is just simply being able to move the character independently. You know, you can make a little animation. All right, anyways. But you know, you can resize them independently, rotate them. Well, since that artwork's behind there, you start playing around with all sorts of compositional changes, right? Adding another character is easier, like, you know, and moving them around and playing around with the scene. So again, at first you feel like you're wasting a bit of time by drawing that background in full detail, but I don't know. I feel like this is the way I'm going to be doing it from here on out. Plus you get to recycle your background, especially if it's, you know, say you're just maneuvering through a panel and for the next shot, you're still in the same scene, but you just want to take this, zoom up on a section. It's already there, right? You don't have to worry about it. You can do neat little effects like going from, say it's the same city, but then at night. Well, you can convert that to a nighttime city pretty easy, you know, and a more advanced shot than this. I'm just giving you some, for instances, ideas, you know, whatever. But so essentially you got that, but here's another big aspect of it. Editing the full character was way easier. So I shared this and I got some feedback from people on the howtodrawcomics.net site run by Clayton Barton. He's on my featured channels list. Excellent resource. You should check it out. Great Facebook group. And so basically, you know, somebody had pointed out, hey, that arm looks a little funky in the back. It's too straight up and too small. And then, you know, like anything else, when somebody points it out, you can't unsee it. I was like, oh God, I think they're right. So but here's the beauty of it. When you work on the characters as their own set of layers in a group like this, watch how easy it is. I'm going to go to the next one now and show you this because it's already edited, but I'm going to show you basically how easy it was even with this one. I'm on the group with Spidey, right? I select this arm. Now keep in mind, if it requires a redraw, it's not quite this easy, but watch how easy it is in Procreate to do this. You can now rotate it, you can scale it up, you can move it around. It looks like it lost the color data, right? You let go of it, it drops it all back in place. And so now all you have to do is you go back to the layers from the red up, okay? So I use a base color layer of red, and then I clip mask everything else above it. Even the webs, all of that is clipped into the red, even the blue. I just find it to be an easier way to go about it. But so the only ones I have to edit are this one, this one, this one, well, and actually the highlights too. So 4 right there, right? And so I would just do them one at a time. I start with the red layer. I find that same color red. I fill that. Oh, don't want that. Let go of that. I don't know why I did that. Oh, do you know what? It's because I'm actually on the group, not the layer itself. There we go. Let go of that. And so then I fill that in. Oh, it's got to be full. Fill that in, right? I'm just going to do a down and dirty version here. And so now each one of these layers react off that one. I can start blending it into this. I can resample it. Whatever I got to do. I'm just going to recolorize and fix this area. I'll finish off the line work, re-add the highlights. It's not as hard as you might think. It's pretty darn easy. That one looks funky, so I'm going to go back. But that's the beauty of it. If they're all grouped together, it keeps the majority of the layers that are reactionary to it. They all work together. It all pushes together just like that. I'll tell you, it's hard to explain until you've had to do it the other way where you didn't have that and you want to change something. You end up just redrawing it, which isn't horrible. It's not like it takes that long to redraw and recolorize an arm, but that is definitely much faster. So keep that in mind that the groups can really benefit you for that aspect right there alone. Again, if you find yourself getting into trouble with even more layers, and I did because for the buildings I like to keep all the trim pieces, everything separate, especially as I'm adding little textures and things like that. So again, I duplicate it, and if I feel pinched, I just back down the size. So here I brought it down to 3600 by 4000, I believe. Let me check that. Dimensions. 3600 by 45. And that gave me 37 layers, and look, I used almost all of them. So again, that method of duplicating, resizing, remember you got to check the not just the constrained proportions, but the resample canvas, and it will resize it, and then you just zoom in and check your line clarity, make sure you're good to go. And yeah, I love the ability to, again, edit things in this way, maneuver through the process. It just feels more fluid. Again, overall, the whole piece took about 15 hours, which I think is a bit much, but I'm still pretty happy with it. Oh, one last tip, and I'll let you out of here. I know you got a busy life. the other thing was, one of the feedback comments I got was, if you look at the previous one, he looks like he's too, the colors are too muddy and he's too close to the scene, like there's no separation there. Well, a real easy way to do that, especially with the character being separated by a group like this, is in between the character and the group and the background elements, you just basically add a couple layers, and you can see the layer itself is like blue up top and then translucent or transparent at the bottom. Well, I just added one as an add mode, one as a screen mode, and it just gives you that atmospheric kind of perspective feeling that the top of it is starting to take on the color of the background. The bottom is actually more vivid, and yeah, and it separates Spidey from that background a little bit. So that's really it. Make sure I'll do the time lapse real quick and just make sure I didn't miss anything. You can see the process a little bit better. Takes a minute to get started. Come on, there it goes. And so again, grid, rough sketch, clean up the background. The background did take, what did I say, 6 hours? So again, probably a bit much. I'm going to try to move faster on the next one. Rough sketch of the character. Block in a base color because it allows you to separate them from the background more, better visually. Clean up the line work, make the edits, ask people to tell you what's wrong with it when you can't see the flaws like me, and then just start dropping in some color. And there we go with the colors, highlights, shadows, the webbing. Move the arm, add the highlights, atmospheric background, and there you go. So that's it. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. Let me know if you have any questions. More content on the way. Thanks for watching. Good luck with your art, and bye for now.